Hello, welcome back to my Women in Motorsport interview series. This is my first one of 2022, and I've been chatting with Katie Gass, who is an operations executive at Veloce. We chatted about Lando Norris, we chatted about Extreme E, we chatted about how Katie got into a career in motorsport, and we had a really great conversation. So check it out and make sure to like and leave a comment. So I know you just joined Veloce in August of last year, but I also did listen to the other podcast interview that you did recently and heard a bit about your family ties that kind of drew you to a career in motorsport in the first place. And yeah, I think it'd be really interesting for my viewers to kind of hear more about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, motorsport is definitely something that's kind of been tied to my family for a long time. I definitely grew up being exposed to F1 races, being down at the track. So my father, he used to sort of race at like a very low level, but it meant that often we'd be on like Saturdays and Sundays at Brands Hatch watching him. And then at the same time, my stepdad, he is a mechanic by trade, but he spent a lot of time as well at the racetrack, and then he's now got his own car garage, so it's really nice. And yeah, I think it's definitely been something that's been installed to us just from an early age, and I think back in the day you didn't really appreciate it as much as maybe I do now. So yeah, it's been really great to sort of grow up with it and definitely learn along the way as well.
Definitely. I think that happens a lot of the time with things that you get like brought along to with your parents. At the beginning, you're like, I wish I was doing something else. And then later on, you realize like how much you actually enjoyed it. I can definitely relate to that. I'd love to know kind of what it was about Veloce in particular that kind of drew you to join the team. Because obviously motorsport is like very broad, and there's tons of different career paths that you can kind of take. So what was it about Veloce in particular that sort of piqued your interest?
Yeah, I think I had been following Veloce actually for a little while, and I really thought they were quite niche in sort of the way their branding is so like innovative and just really unique. So I'd been following them for a little while, and just every time they were sort of working with new partners or the type of content they were putting out there, I just thought it was so like exciting and just something a bit different to like the normal sort of like F1 teams and how they like have like a set branding. And I just thought the way they're sort of encouraging women in the W series, that was something, as a woman, it's so exciting to see. And then Extreme, I didn't know as much about. So being now in the role that I am, I've definitely learned a lot more about what it all involves. So I think, yeah, just how exciting they are as a company. And I think because we are still quite small and we are sort of recruiting quite largely at the moment just because we're growing. But especially with a startup, you really get to see like the ins and outs of all the different teams, and everyone is so unique and creative. So yeah, it's been really exciting joining, and they're just a very different company to I think a lot of the sort of set standard other teams.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting to see over the past couple of years, even on like Twitter and stuff like that, a lot of the teams are getting on this social media bandwagon, which is funny because so many other sports kind of got there quicker, but I think F1 has developed this very sort of like meme centric and like kind of quite quirky personality, which it's quite funny. But I definitely agree. It's nice to see that kind of refreshing stuff where I think previously it had all been a bit like cut and paste, I think. So I would definitely agree with you there. And so people might not know that Veloce actually is one of Quadrant, Lando Norris's brand, like one of the big partners there. I'm no doubt people would be very curious to kind of hear kind of more about what that's like, or even just sort of like the role that Veloce plays like as a partner to Quadrant.
Yeah, it's really exciting because it is sort of like a sub brand of what we do at Veloce, but they're in their own right. They've sort of grown with a massive following, and obviously Lando Norris, he definitely hit the nail on the head during lockdown with his gaming and his streaming, and you could just tell that was a whole different side to an F1 sports personality that anyone had seen. So yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, he's come into the office once before, So we didn't know he was coming in, so I sort of opened the door thinking it was just going to be like a post delivery, and then there he was. So I was a bit like,
oh my gosh,
starstruck. So that was really exciting. But I think Quadrant is really unique, and it is slightly different. You know, we have apparel drops, and we have a in-house designer that's sort of coordinating that. We've got a great group of like content that's sort of just dedicated to Quadrant. So it is a really exciting brand, and it is just growing at the moment. So that's really great to see.
Yeah. And in terms of your own role then, I guess to give people a better idea, you are an operations executive by title. And I'm sure every day looks very, very different, but I guess just to kind of give a flavour of the types of work that you kind of end up doing.
Yeah, it really does vary, like you say. I think you kind of wear multiple hats, and every day can definitely vary. I think with a race season, like we have the Extreme season, for example, we're just coming into the season 2 of the championship. That's definitely a lot of travel. So that's whether it's organising flights, booking transfers, So booking flights, organising transfers, hotels, speaking, with the drivers, making sure that they've got all their itineraries. And then similarly, if we have hospitality guests, so whether that's investors or sponsors that we're taking to the race, to just really get a flavour of what Extreme E is like and with the car. So I'll be managing that side. And again, in-house with just like management of the day-to-day office, really. So just kind of like standard office duties where we have quite a lot of men in the office. So like sort of whip them into shape.
Nice.
That's really, just making sure when we have meetings, everything's looking great, taking meeting notes, just sort of making sure everything's in check. And then we also sometimes do like partnership press releases or events. So that's something I get involved with as well. So yeah, it really does vary, especially with my title. It's kind of one moment I could be working with this department, then the next I have a request for, an upcoming race. So yeah, it's definitely just learning the ropes really to a lot of different things that go on in the office.
And you mentioned kind of flights and travel and everything like that. I can imagine that during COVID, that was quite a tricky job to have. I can imagine you're like very much looking forward to things sort of getting back to normal a bit more this year.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I go on the government website daily just to, different countries, checking the updates, seeing what's happening in the news, because one moment, somebody needs a PCR test to come into the country, and then the next it's something else. So yeah, it's definitely been a bit more challenging, and just something that just none of us have really been used to before. So this is definitely something new. But it is starting to get better, I think. As I'm noticing, as I'm booking things, it's now becoming like an antigen or something a bit different. So at the moment, it's quite challenging depending on location. And with the Extreme E races, they're obviously quite remote places. So it can be a bit harder just making sure that everyone is definitely where they need to be and got all the right vaccinations and everything. Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it earlier with the female representation in the W series that Veloce is part of, and I'd love to know kind of from your point of view of what you've seen so far working in the motorsport industry, what do you think we could do kind of more to capture the attention of, I think, especially like younger women or schoolgirl kind of age groups, where you kind of have to catch them early to let them know that like, hey, this is an option for you as well. Like maybe you don't see as much of the representation on TV, but like it is possible. What do you think we could be doing more of to help with that?
Yeah, I mean, even things like what you're doing, for example, like just creating a platform and just spreading messages and just trying to reach. I think we're quite lucky that we do have like social media and sort of platforms where we can just advertise so much now. I think obviously it's got to start from like the tops. So F1, they are starting to promote the women that are working in their companies and sort of starting to shine a light on the women that are working in motorsport. We participate in something called Girls on Track, and that's a really great Motorsport UK. They go into schools and they sometimes have W series drivers come in and sort of have workshops, and there are female engineers that go around to races, but they also teach the girls about the sport, and so they'll have different sort of elements throughout the day. So they'll be learning about press and talking to the press, then they'll go and train as sort of like a mechanic and changing tires. So just something like that. Like I never had that opportunity at school, and I think seeing, you know, girls as young as like 10 are being sort of introduced to the world of motorsport and shown that actually these opportunities can for anyone, they're open to. So I just think it's important that more things like that are continuing, and then people that are in the sports and are working in the industry also participate and sort of spread awareness as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, similarly, like when I was growing up, I just didn't even consider it to be an option because I just didn't see that it was there. But now I think it is much better, and I agree, like the highlighting people that work in, you know, the females that work in motorsport it's such a big part of it, because I think definitely if I'd had opportunities like that workshop that you mentioned when I was in school, I would have been like first person to
sign me up.
So totally agree with that. Perfect. Well, I usually do a 5-round finisher to kind of finish it off, and these are sort of just like random questions that I'm going to throw at you, and you can tell me the first thing that comes to your head. So what is your dream race location that you'd love to work on site at?
There are so many. I mean, each have their own like uniqueness. I think probably like Monaco, like the Monaco Grand Prix. Like it's just so historic, like just an iconic place. And I think it's got I think it's one of the most like unique locations, just because, you know, you've got the yachts, you've got then like the track, which is just insane. So yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool going there.
Definitely. What is the most bizarre item you've ever had to organize as part of your job?
I think we once had a Quadrant apparel shoot, and I literally got asked like the day before to get 2 Mustangs. And you'd be surprised how hard it is to actually just find like Mustangs in the UK that, you know, have the set requirements that they needed for the shoot. So it literally meant a day of calling, emailing, trying to like hunt down, because sometimes you can just get one Mustang is just about like doable, and then to get 2, it was like, okay, let me literally reach out to everyone. But in the end we got them and it looked great.
Yeah, that was the Clover Motors one, right? That they had the Mustangs. Yeah, that did look really
so they
cool,
came. It was. They had to collect them like 3 hours away in the morning, and then they brought them back up to London, drove them around London. So yeah, I definitely think it was a success.
Definitely, kudos to you for pulling that off. That's awesome. Do you prefer traveling or do you prefer staying at home?
I think traveling. I think whilst, you know, we're young and we have the opportunities, like it's great just to get on the plane, and whether it's for work or anything like that. I mean, funny enough, I don't actually like flying that much, so I kind of do just have to, you know, have a quick drink and just calm my nerves. But I think if you get the opportunity to travel with work, you should just take it and just enjoy the ride, really.
100%. And who would you say is your most inspiring woman in motorsport? Current or past? Current or past.
I think I know it's quite a typical answer, but probably Susie Wolff.
Yeah.
I think she's just like an absolute weapon of a woman. She's done so much for the industry and for girls across the world, I think. So yeah, I'd love to have like dinner with her. She's definitely on like the top 5 people for dinner.
That would be amazing. Yeah, and I think the way she's sort of like her career trajectory as well, you know, she could have like, when she decided to stop being a test driver at Williams, she could have been like, oh, I'm going to do something else or kind of try something completely different, but she like stuck with the industry, which is really awesome, and just kind of branched out. I thought that was really cool.
I know, it's like I'd love to be her just for a day to see what it's like.
For a day, yeah, exactly. That'd just be awesome. And then I asked this one of everyone because I'm just curious, and it's a fun one. If you could be any cartoon character from your childhood for one day, who would you choose to be?
I think this is really random, but I think probably. Have you ever watched Fairly Odd Parents?
Yeah.
Nickelodeon. Okay, so Timmy.
Nice.
Nice. So random, but he just like got to like do whatever he wanted, went on all the adventures, and just kind of like had so much fun. So I think that'd be pretty cool, having two godparents that were magic.
Absolutely. I love that everyone has like something different, and everyone says, oh, this is so random, but it's always a really good answer.
Okay, what's yours? What do you think yours is?
I used to say it would be Angelica from Rugrats. Because I'm the eldest daughter, so I feel like I get to be a bit bossy sometimes, and she's a hilarious character. So I think I'd have to pick her, and if not, someone from Recess, because I just love the fact that they seem to be just like playing all the time. As a kid, I was like, that's awesome.
Like, I want to stay young forever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, Katie, thank you so much for speaking with me and taking the time. It's been a pleasure to chat with you, and best of luck with all your future endeavours at Veloce.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. Thank you for having me.